What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the third episode for Mr. Gray's Talk Room. So, I know it's been a minute since my last podcast episode, but I wanted to address a few things. Going back to my second episode, after releasing my first episode, I've been called a misogynist, a racist, a sexist, a bigot, a goober. I don't even know what the fuck a goober is. I've been called a jester. I did not realize that my opinion based on the values of traditional women and the stuff that I truly believe in was actually going to trigger so many people. I cannot tell you how many times on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram that I was just shadow banned, or they just decided to mute all the stuff that I have said because it's too offensive apparently. But before I move into that, I do want to let you know I've made my peace. My stuff isn't to talk about like traditional dating. It's not supposed to talk about, if men are better than women. The whole purpose of my podcast is actually to help you as women and you as men have a better sex life. And there's going to be a touch of comedy here and there. I do want to talk about careers. I do want to talk about masculinity and femininity, but the main thing that I want to talk about is sex. I believe that unless you're a porn star or you're OnlyFans thought, even thoughts that are having like these OnlyFans channels, they use sex more as an action instead of an experience. At least that's what I've entailed. I have literally slept with OnlyFans thoughts, and it's like sex is an action for them instead of an experience. And I've slept with plenty of women, but I have very few women that I've been in relationships with. So, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna say our code names. I have code names, just the same way that I have safe words. Alexi, Alexandria, Renee. You girls know who I'm talking about. They're probably not going to listen to my podcast because they fucking hate me because we're not married or we're not engaged or whatever the fuck it is. That's perfectly fine. I don't care. But if they are listening to my podcast, if they still think about me, because obviously why would they not think about me? I was gifted with a Red Bull cock. I have a donkey dick. I'm not long, but I'm girthy, or at least that's what I've been told. So unless you're gifted like me, like a good, solid 7, you know what I mean? I'm a solid 7, I'm good looking, but I'm a solid 7 down there, you know where? I mean, I can't complain, and they won't complain. As a matter of fact, they screech. They're like banshees, they wail. But going into that, the main thing that I wanted to bring this podcast before I was called all these words and all this stuff in my after my first episode, which really was just trying to justify a BDSM relationship possibility for Andrew and Tristan Tate. That's generally what I believe that has what happened is, women got themselves involved into this webcam business, and with that being said, they probably did some BDSM shit. And if the average person tried to walk in to a bedroom of people having a BDSM relationship, they would call the cops. Like that's literally what would happen. Alexandria, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Alexandria. If the women, if some random person, some person who has vanilla sex were to walk in the room from the relationship you and I had, they would call the cops. You know that. Marlene, you know the same shit. Again, code names. So going back into that aspect, this episode is going to be boosting your sex life. So to men, this is specifically designed for men. I want this episode to be geared towards men, right? Everybody has problems in the bedroom in some way or another. And the reason why I say this because things can be very redundant and repetitive. And when you get very complacent or content, things can deem almost boring, as a matter of fact. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and play this. because this is gonna make so much sense, right? Let's just play the intro. And apparently, Maurice, I'm using Maurice. If we're talking, you have always talked this shit to me. Remember when we were in college? You know what I'm talking about there. So let's go ahead and play this, just so we can kind of get a little bit of a taste of what's going to go on. All right, here we go. There we go. That's it. You make it look like it's magic. Oh. I see nobody but you. All right, so let me go ahead and pause it there. Maurice knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I want to make sure that I address this. Mom, if you're listening to this, my close family, if you're listening to this, please do not continue listening to this. If you made it this far and you've already heard what I said, you already know the shit that I'm going to talk about. And I'll say this because my dear sibling caught my fucking sex bag one time, and she just ripped me a new asshole. But it's fine because, my mom was cool as shit about it. When she had told her about it, she's like, that's something I expected. But okay, fine, whatever, fuck it. If you're my close family and you continue to listen to this, I advise you, this podcast episode and the episodes moving forward, they're not designed for children. If you are not 18 years old, do not listen to my podcast. I assure you, I am not designed for children. And that's what I'm saying, just to cover myself with Rumble, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all that shit. So kind of cut things short to let you guys know where I decided to enter the world of BDSM. Mom, if you're still listening to this, it's not your fault. It happens. It's fine. Okay. Let's just say when I was in college, I was seduced by a much older woman than I was, right? And in a sense, she had power, and she brought me into the world of BDSM. And before that, even though I was a college athlete, I was a linebacker when I played at McMurray University. When she brought me into the world of BDSM, little behold, that I actually read the 50 Shades of Grey books before I watched the movies. And I will say the book kind of exacerbates the concept of BDSM. Like, that is kind of more on the extreme level because you have fuck you money. But to the average person, that really isn't the case. Now, there are sex dungeons that you can actually enter, or sex clubs or swingers clubs. But BDSM, in short, stands for bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism. And I will say that sadism and masochism, like, there are on the much extreme level, there are guys that literally get off. They will not have sex with a woman. They will literally, in terms of, beat the shit out of a woman. And there's actually very common in more of Europe. I haven't seen it much in America. Of course, there are like certain very discreet places where you can go in, pay your membership dues, and you have these women that you have no spiritual or relationship connection with them, and all your thing is, if you want to get off, you just beat the shit out of them because they're masochists and you're a sadist. Like, there are men who literally they don't even get off sexually to what you would look like beat the shit out of a woman. They just get off just in a way soft torturing a woman. That I've never been to that extreme. I've been more of a dominant, and the submissive I have, it's been much more on the soft core side, not hardcore side. And I'll explain more in a little bit. But now that I have addressed this, I want to help you guys boost your sex life. And because I actually had been there, I've been where you've been. When I was, believe it was 2018, I was fresh out of college. I had just gotten my bachelor's degree. I graduated when I was 20. When I was 21, I got a grad assistantship at Tarleton State University. And I will tell you what, that entire year was the best, one of the best, not the best, but one of the best sexual experiences that I had in my life, because I was able to try everything. I literally got to the point where, one woman brought me into the world of BDSM. I brought several women into the world of BDSM because she had graduated. And I was able to bring other women into my life, but I was the dominant and they were the submissive, right? And there's always a learning curve when you do that, right? You can't just be a dominant and say you're a dominant. Generally, any man who said that, hey, I'm a dominant, or they're a sadist, that's more on the extreme side, they've had to have been at one point a submissive, so they know exactly the limitations and being able to respect the boundaries to, again, both you as a partner and they as a partner. And that was one of the best sexual experience years because it made things more clear for me. So when I left college, I could easily go up. I knew the formula to be able to get some random woman that I'll not to say random, but a calibrated woman that I specifically targeted to incentivize them to become my submissive. Now I know people are going to be listening to this. They're like, oh, you pretty much coerced or used the lover boys method. No, that's not what I did, because it was a settled agreement, right? But before that happened, when I had left college, there was a period where everything went to shit. I was able, and I say this, like I had a libido like a fucking porn star. If I had a camera, if you had seen the sex that I gave to these women, you'd be like, this motherfucker's a porn star, right? On top of being gifted with a donkey dick. But what had happened when I had left college, or when I was in college as a grad assistant, and then I started working in corporate America, I went from being like 220 pounds, very lean, very fit, took care of myself. I mean, I drank like a fucking animal too, but I ended up being 265 pounds because when you work in corporate America, you lose sight of things, right? The money really does blind you when you first leave that. It's just every dumb mistake that you could possibly do. Jared, if you're listening to this, Jay, if you're listening to this, Maurice, if you're listening to this, William, if you're listening to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You get comfortable. You're like, oh, I can skip a workout. Like, no, don't fucking skip your workout. Like, because it's going to go into the later of this episode. So essentially, I went from being able to go from anywhere from like 20 minutes to an hour and a half, 2 hours most, right? And that was the typical libido, or the way I was able to sexually sustain myself. Like, I look back and I should have been doing OnlyFans before OnlyFans became a thing. Like, I would have been the fucking greatest dominant, and of course I'm biased, greatest dominant fucking sexual porn star at that perfect time and be able to show guys exactly what I'm thinking. But anyway, I fucked myself up. So when I became at my heaviest, right now I sit about like 230, 235. I do jiu-jitsu consistently now, and I do compete competitively. On top of working out and all that stuff, watching what I eat. Now I'm at a much more moderate weight, and with all that said and done, that has actually has helped me get back to my typical libido and sex drive as a man and being able to sustain an erection and whatnot. But when I was at my heaviest, when I was 265, when I was with Alexandria and I got very complacent, I was actually very embarrassed for myself. Like, I went from being able to sexually satisfy my woman, my submissive, for at least 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And it was a whole entire experience. And then somewhere at some point, like, I remember I was embarrassed at this one Thanksgiving dinner. I literally lasted like not even 30 seconds, and I was pissed at myself. Like, I remember being very flushed and red, and I saw her, and she was like, I'm just fucking disappointed in you. Like, that was the look that she gave me. So guys, if you're having that look with your woman, like literally you're busting too quick, we're gonna finally get into the tall tales of how can I help you get your libido back, or how can I help you satisfy your woman now that you're having problems in the bedroom. And look, we've all had problems in the bedroom, but the thing is, can we rectify them? Do we know what we're doing? Can we get our shit on board, right? Like, keep your shit in check. Like, do you need to have a healthy sex life? I assure you that. So, premature ejaculation, when I was at my heaviest, there was a lot of things I had to put in consideration. So if you are ejaculating prematurely, meaning that you're not trying to bust, but you're busting because your body is naturally saying, hey, I gotta go, you gotta ensure that after round 1, you have to compose yourself for round 2. Now, there are a couple of things to ever prevent that round 1 from finishing too early. And look, 1 to 3 men are probably having these problems. I assure you that. It's very, very common, right? First things that you need to put in consideration is, what is your BMI? Do you have too much body fat on you? Do you have low testosterone? What is your age? Are you on any kind of medications like antidepressants? That are causing that. Like, some medications do cause impotence, meaning that, you're very flaccid, the way they said it in Bad Boys 2. You have to put those things in consideration. So look at your life. Like, if you have too many fried foods, if you're drinking too much alcohol, I will say this: if you're smoking weed or doing cocaine, I assure you, you're not going to be able to sustain a hard-on. Like, it's going to be. And then the last thing that but men do not want to admit, women, I assure you, you do not want to look through a man's phone. Because you're going to find shit. You're either going to find another woman, or you're going to find the concept of another woman. Guys, if you're watching too much porn, stop fucking watching it. Unless you are making porn for your own, and unless you're fucking on the daily basis, you gotta stop watching porn. I'm telling you that. The only reason why it's the exception for me is because Mom, don't get mad, but if somehow, some way I create an OnlyFans, do not fucking watch it. Nevertheless, the way this works is you have to actually you have to really read, you have to just listen to your body, guys. Like, that, you have to listen to your body. If I want you to reflect on when you're in your sexual prime, right? When you were 16, 17, 18, you could bust 6, 7, 8 times in a fucking day, still keeping hard on for 2 hours. That was when you were at your prime puberty moment. You're not doing that. Like, generally at 25, that's when you peak, literally physically peak, and then you kind of stabilize until you hit 30. So that's where I'm trying to tell you is, you gotta reflect on your current actions. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. Look back at what you're currently doing. If you're watching too much porn, stop. And I'm gonna get into this because I'm gonna try and help you experiment with your woman. But if you're watching too much porn, stop. If you're eating like shit, stop. Watch your weight. Look at your fitness. Look at your health. See if you have low testosterone. Speak with your family care physician. Like, those are normal things that you need to be able to discuss. It's your body. So before you can take care of your woman, you got to take care of yourself first. Because once you take care of yourself, then you'll be able to take care of your woman. So the reason why I'm telling you to stop watching porn, and it's very common, is because it gives you the false perception of sex. I know. You were on a raw dog, bareback, cream pie, whatever woman that you're with, right? Like, you want to do all those sexual experiences that you are seeing with your woman, but it's giving you a false perception. That's not sex. That is porn. It is an act. It's like any other cinematic movie that you see. It's not real. Now, this is not to say that you cannot be able to indulge yourselves in an act if, women have these fantasies that they want to express with you. But again, have you expressed that to your woman? Hey, I have a kink. Let's explore this together. That is the key where women get like if you try to if you drink vodka and you try to spit that into your woman's mouth while you're having sex and she's never done that before, she's probably gonna freak out. I know I'm speaking from experience here, but it's like, hey, like, have you talked that with your woman? Most guys haven't. So that's kind of where you're trying to make this false perception that you've been seeing on your phone or on your laptop and put it into reality, and that's what's fucking you up in the bedroom. Like that, I mean, if that's what gets you hard on, you have to express that with her. And majority of the time, women want to be able to sexually please you as a man. So we talked about your body composition, all that stuff. Moving over from there, we also have to put into consideration is making love and fucking. As somebody who's a dominant, is I have only had probably about maybe, I want to say 2 out of the 5 submissives that I've had, I actually fell in love with only after the fact that they were my submissive first and they were my lover second. And amongst other things is when I developed the emotional and spiritual connection with them, like I genuinely wanted to explore their body. It was actually to the point where like I didn't even get aroused wanting to do these dominant fantasies or submissive fantasies with them. It was more the fact that I just wanted to make love and have sex with them. And it was generally at that time whatever chemistry is going on in my head that I just lost my libido and sex drive. It was like I just wanted to, you know, be able to enjoy that. But then of course the kickback came where it's like women take much longer to orgasm or climax than men. Like men, we're all based on penetration, and I'll say that it's just point blank. Women are most based on the experience in of itself, and so when I actually indulged myself in the experiences, it was massively different. So I want you to put that in consideration right now. If you're busting quick, as after you addressed all your physical and current capabilities as a man, like where you currently stand, go ahead and look at the emotional and spiritual aspect between you and your partner, and that'll kind of give you an exception, an exception to the rule of, is this based on my body chemistry or is this based on the fact that I genuinely love this person and I just want to explore this person and their entire entity. Because it does put into consideration. We've already reflected back to when you're in sexual prime. So the thing is, how do we get you back into your sexual prime? Another important aspect. What can you do? There are many things they can do, and I'm going to break it down to 5 simple steps. This is what I did when I was at my heaviest at 265. And I literally was a fat fuck. If you look at my Instagram, if you look back at my Instagram, I was a fat fuck. I was very, very disappointed with myself that I let myself go as a man. If you're a man and you're a fat fuck, and I'm gonna use a fucking example because I saw this in the movie. I saw this not movie, but in the TV show Euphoria. I can't remember what her name was explicitly, but it was a much more thick, I'll say big, busty woman. One of those teenagers. Essentially, she's a fucking dork. She's a fucking nerd. She's overweight. And ladies, I'm not saying that if you're fat that you're not gorgeous. Like there are very thick, busty, beautiful women out there. I'm just saying for Euphoria's sake, like in this TV show, that this woman was, let's just call it for what it is. She was fat, and she essentially put on a cat mask and some lingerie, and she got a whole bunch of guys. And guys, we're going back to the topic of the conversation. This fat 16, 17-year-old woman who was being very sexually provocative, right? I mean, she wasn't even entirely naked, right? She was just pretty much dancing from her laptop, the laptop that you see here, and just sexually arousing this man, literally humiliating. And I'm talking about fucking dorks, fucking geeks. It's okay if you're bald, but if you're fit, it's okay. It's okay if you're a little bit stocky, but you're not fat because your BMI balances out. But I'm talking about these fat fuck, dorky looking motherfuckers who have nothing, like they probably never been laid in their fucking life, have fucking small ass dicks, right? And I'm just saying, I'm thinking, I'm watching Euphoria, I'm like, that is fucking embarrassing me for a fucking man. I will never submit to a fucking woman. And I say this because I refuse moving forward to submit to a woman where she would humiliate me sexually, innately, spiritually, physically, and financially. Man, if you want to bring big dick energy, you got to be able to be dominant to your submissive. And you don't even have to adopt my particular BDSM lifestyle. I'm just saying is like you want to make your woman give you the 6 steps to your satisfaction. Sex, silence, suction, sandwiches, stability, and submission. If you do that to your woman, I swear to God, you'll be fucking happy. And generally with the last submissives I had, they've always lost at least 1 or 2 of those, and it just either relationship went to shit or lost respect in some way, shape, or form. I either lost respect for them or they lost respect for me. Shit went to shit. That's exactly why I, of course, am not in those relationships anymore. But I am telling you, after watching that Euphoria episode, I was fucking embarrassed for myself as a fucking man. I'm like, that is fucking stupid. I refuse to be that motherfucker. I'm Mom, I'm just saying, if I make some porn on OnlyFans, don't watch it. I'm probably going to promote it, but don't watch it. It's not your business. I'm just saying. Don't worry about me, right? I'm cool. I'll be fucking bitches left and right. But going back into that, I don't have to deal with the double standard that women do. It's massively different, right? I'm getting women that want me to, they want to submit to me and I be dominant to them. They want me to do some 50 Shades of Grey shit. That's why I made my name Christian Grey, right? They want that shit because I know exactly. And I was taught to this. I was taught this from a woman, of course, but and I give respect to her. She knows she has my mutual respect, but nevertheless, right? That's exactly where I am, the way I am today. So, now that I have addressed that fucking stupid Euphoria episode, God, that fucking pissed me off as a man. I was fucking embarrassed for myself. Here are the 5 steps to help you expand your current, or not expand, but boost your current sex life. If you're struggling right now, here's what you can do. And again, these are not long-term fixes. I mean, a couple of the tips are, but you need to evaluate where you currently stand to get to where you want to be sexually. Think about your sexual health, because your sexual health, your physical health, your emotional health, and your mental health, and your spiritual health, they're all fucking combined, but you gotta get all your shit aligned. And that also goes to your finances. I know that if you're fucking stressed over your finances, and most men are stressed about your finances, you need to get your finances in order. Once you get your finances in order, I assure you everything else falls in place. You're going to work out. You're going to, fuck sexually. I mean, you're going to fuck appropriately. Your mind is going to be right. You're not going to be depressed or anxious. Yeah, of course, there's going to be a little bit of stress involved. But if you're overly stressed, overly eating, all that shit, indulging, I assure you, once you get your finances in order, everything's going to be okay. So the first thing that you need to do is, if you want to sexually satisfy your woman, buy yourself some time. Expand your foreplay. Now, there's a false misconception that you're supposed to attack the clit. The clit, guys, I'm gonna tell you right now, the clit is literally like the crown of your penis. It's the crown of your head, right? The crown of your boy. The same way that you view the crown of your head is the same way that a clitoris acts. Like it's just. Like if a woman is giving you the Gok 5000 on the tip of your head, that's the same sexual feeling that a woman's going to feel on her clit. But if you've ever had an OTPHJ, over the pants hand job, that you're actually going to be more sexually aroused because it's stroking the shaft. So the shaft is like the labia. If you want to satisfy a woman, if you want to get her more aroused, don't attack the clit. Don't fucking try to, you know, twist her that shit. That's not how that works. Stroke her labia, because that's what's gonna allow her to get sexually aroused. Do not touch the clit. The clit is kind of more, you do it every once in a while, whether you're doing it with your fingers or you're doing it with your tongue. Or if you're doing it with a clit simulator. If you do not, and guys, don't be ashamed. If you want to get a toy, and if a woman's open to your toy, like there have been many occasions where I've gone into a sex store and I've bought toys with women, but I never reuse the toys that I bought with other women. Like any women that I'm with, I will buy them toys when they're with me, and I make them. If they use it with other men or use it after, I don't care, but the reason why I do that is because they know that it's not been reused, and some women are very icky about that, and that's something I learned from, my dominant at that time. So don't be ashamed to get a little 1-inch clitoris stimulator or a vibrator, because that's going to help you in the long run. And if you're going to use any lube, right, some women are naturally dry, right? They don't get very moist like others. They're not like Niagara Falls. Get yourself some water-based lube. That's perfectly okay, but you need to speak with your partner, that it's perfectly okay for them to, like, it's perfectly okay between you and to use lube. Like, they understand. Like, you can only get them aroused to whatever extent. So expand your foreplay. Don't try to go in and just fucking go ham and then you bust in 2 minutes or whatever. No, I've always said this, and this is actually a technique that I've used. So listen to this technique. I have a timer on my phone that after every 5 minutes, there's just a soft beep, right? So I know I need to give myself 15 minutes. Women say 15, 20 minutes. For any woman who says fucking 40 minutes or 3 hours, she's a fucking thought. But to the average woman, 15 to 20 minutes, when you hit that 10 to 15 minute mark, you finally got her to the point like you're probably going to make a baby. That 15 to 20 minute mark, it's like, bro, you better pull out if you're not using a condom. I'm just saying, because you got to arouse that much. Get yourself a timer. Put that timer on with your phone. Use her phone to play some softcore music, whatever. I'll actually upload my sex playlist. So if you guys need a sex playlist to arouse your mood, get your woman in the mood, go ahead and use my playlist. I assure you. Light some candles, whatever you need to do. Give yourself 5 minutes. Arouse her. Take her clothes off slowly. Arouse her pressure points. So for women, the pressure points is actually going to be on her collarbone, her neck, the back of her ear. You definitely want to stimulate that. Underneath her chin, right? Stroke the throat. Don't be scared to give a little soft choke, right? I'm not saying do some Andrew Tate, like choke the bitch, right? Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying attack the outside of her neck, her jugular vein. Kind of like slow the oxygen and blood that's going to her brain, right? That'll kind of give her arousal. Explore her other bodies. Caress her breasts. Go inside and out. I've always said, kind of like a Karate Kid, go woo-saw, right? All that shit. Inside and out. Mr. Miyagi type of stuff. And another thing is, when you start getting down there, a woman's sternum, going down to her sternum, to her stomach, to right above where like in her groin area. Again, this is all while not stimulating her clitoris. Kiss the inside of her thighs, and kiss going back to the back of her knees and the back of her ankles, all that good stuff. You could also, and one of the things that I use as a tease, I actually have a bowl of ice, and I will use ice while I am touching all of these areas of her bodies, collarbone, neck, sternum, underneath her breast. If you're going to stimulate her nipples, don't pull it, just twist it. Kind of like you're twisting a candy machine for some candy. Like that's the way to do it. And don't fucking pull it. Just twist it, slowly stimulate it. That's going to buy you at least 5 minutes. You're probably going to be, you yourself are going to be aroused, but you haven't stimulated it yet. Again, as I said before, women are more based on stimulation. Men are most based on penetration. It's like an over-the-pants hand job, right? It's going to get you hard. It's going to get you aroused. You're not going to bust quick. But I assure you, when you stick it in, you've already made her good to go, made her wet. It's like Niagara Falls. So expand your foreplay doing that. Explore her body. Tell her that you enjoy her body. Tell her that you enjoy her curves. Tell her that you enjoy the way her skin feels across your beard. Tell her exactly what you feel, right? Make her feel comfortable. So after we discussed that first spec, expand your foreplay, you buy yourself 5 minutes. The second 5 minutes, that's when you get to business. But just understand, we understand the first step, expanding your fitness, expanding your foreplay, all that stuff. Is your fitness in check? That's primary. Like, before we could even get into this, we had to make sure that your fitness is in check. So if you're overweight, you need to lose the weight. If you have low testosterone, you probably need to find a way to boost your testosterone. So you need to exercise, start eating clean, stop drinking too much alcohol, stop smoking weed, stop doing cocaine, right? I know that sounds very simple, but I mean, I don't smoke weed, and I don't do cocaine, I don't do ecstasy or anything like that. I don't do bars or fucking Vicodin or Percocet. But again, if you're doing illicit drugs or if you're on prescription medication that's causing you to be intimate, do not fucking just stop doing that shit. Get your shit in order, because that's going to allow you to be able to do foreplay with your woman. Give yourself 5 to 10 minutes doing foreplay. So let's say after we explored those 5 minutes, right? You got yourself in order. You feel pretty good physically, right? The third thing that we need to do is explore angles. Now we can finally get into the nuggets of like, hey guys, like, men, you're hard as a fucking rock. What the fuck I do? Missionary and doggy style is overplayed. I know you've been watching porn and you're like, oh, let me fucking pile drive this woman. Let me fucking pull her ankles over the back of her head. Any respectable woman who does not have a high body count, I don't give a fuck if I'm canceled for this. Any respectable woman who does not have a high body count, they probably have maybe watched porn once or twice at best, but they're not going to want to be pile driven with their ankles over the back of their head and try to have you attack their fucking cervix. I assure you that. Like, they're respectable. They don't know what they don't know. And that's the type of woman that you want. Now, let's just say, whatever reason, your partner ends up going into that shit. Well, you have to put in consideration, like, you're probably not the only one. And if that's the case, like, who else is she not fucking besides you? I'm gonna say my piece there and leave that at. But let's say you have yourself a respectable woman, or let's say you have a woman who's willing to be your submissive, a woman who's willing to explore her sensuality, not her sexuality, her sensuality, to be able to please you as a man, right? Let's say you have a woman who's willing to do that. How do you do that in the softcore way, right? I'll say like Skinamax, HBO and Cinemax, all that shit. You don't really see it, but you do see it. How would you be able to do that? We understand the foreplay part. We know the points of being able to arouse a woman and the way you need to arouse them. Use some ice. Use some candle wax, actually. You can use some candle wax for a woman. It's actually designed for a woman. It's like a lotion, candle wax. Exploit your angles. If you're not gifted like me with a solid Red Bull donkey dick, maybe you're a short king, you're a little on the short side, or maybe you're some big buff motherfucker who's on some steroids and your balls shrunk, and it's like, hey, you're not gifted like me, right? Maybe you have some delayed gratification, or maybe you have some premature ejaculation, what do you do, right? Well, we already addressed buying yourself some time, but let's say you're not gifted like me, right? You don't have a massive wang. What do you do? Exploiting angles goes into the fact that you need to figure out where a woman's G spot is. Now, I remember you're gonna laugh at this, but when I was in college, I actually took a couple of biology classes, and the one of the most amusing classes was anatomy and physiology. And when I took that class, I was actually in a room full of all pre-nursing majors, so it was all women and very few guys. And the instructor that was teaching that class, I think it was Mr. McReynolds, fucking asshole. I fucking hated him because he almost failed me. But even though I passed with a B, but I missed like 17 classes in a row. Because I'm a smart motherfucker. I got a 85 on the final, and I got 85 in class, even though I was drunk half the time taking those quizzes and exams and the fucking labs. One of the guys had raised his hand because we obviously in anatomy physiology too, we had to discuss about the sexual reproduction system, and we talked about, you know, when a woman takes birth control, when they're not on birth control, low sperm count, how, like, you know, how women ovulate, and there's a period where when women ovulate, after that, or after their period, you know, there's a period, like, there's like, I guess you could say like 8 to 10 days where you can literally bust in a woman and she won't get pregnant, right? Based on her body chemistry. We talked about that, and one of the guys, it was actually a football player, a big old 6'3" dude, probably about like 280 pounds. He's like, hey, you know, I just have a general question. We're in lab one time, we're literally looking at a fucking model shaped vagina, and he says, I'm just gonna ask, you know, when I'm with a woman and I'm inside her, and this is a woman. It's actually the lab instructor was a woman who was pregnant. It was funny. He's like, can you tell me why every time that I'm with this woman, I feel like this ball in the back of, like, in the back of, you know, the vagina? She says, and it was funny because we all started laughing. The lab instructor is like, which pretty much, this guy pretty much said he had a big horse cock, you know, go Africa, whatnot. And she says, like, I think his name was like Deontay or Devontae or something like that. He says, Deontay, you're hitting a woman's cervix, which is literally the point where, like, that's where her baby maker is, where if you're hitting her cervix, you would literally hitting the base of, if she was pregnant, the base of a kid's head or the case of a kid's feet, right? And a woman's vagina really only expands 3 to 4 inches. But, like, if you're hitting that, like, you're past the vagina canal and you're into her fucking cervix and her uterus, like, you know. So that was just a really awkward conversation, but it did teach me a lot in terms of, like, if you're a short king and you're not gifted, what do you do, right? I know I'm going on a few tangents here, but I'm trying to ensure that I can set the basis and preface for this. You need to explore angles. Missionary and doggy style is overrated. And I know there are some women with very thick thighs, with very juicy asses, that, you know, some men cannot hit it from the back. So what the fuck do you do? Okay, so typical missionary position, right? You're on top, legs open, fine, whatever. What you can do is, remember, if a woman's clitoris is at the top right here, if I'm looking at my if I'm looking at my middle knuckle, and then if I look to the 2 fingers on the outside, and that's her labia, remember that the middle knuckle, if that's her clitoris, behind my hand, the palm of my hand, her clitoris is literally behind my middle knuckle, which is the palm of my hand. You need to hit the G-spot. That's the G-spot. That is the same way that you've used the tip of your dick. That is her G-spot. So, once you understand that, it's going to make much more sense. So, if we're talking about exploiting angles, a good way to exploit the angle is if you're a little bit short on the short side and the average dick is about 4 to 6 inches, put a pillow underneath her hips, and that will allow the top part of your shaft to be able to stroke your woman's G spot appropriately, right? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? It's just you're trying to get the angle. You're trying to hit her G spot. If you're not that long, you're not going to hit her cervix. I mean, unless she's 110 pounds and very petite, it's not going to happen. The average woman who's anywhere from like 150 to about 180 pounds, if they're much longer, depending on their body type, like depending on how tall they are, it's going to be really difficult for you to do that, right? So you want to explore the angle. So go ahead, pull a pillow underneath the back of her hips. It's going to allow her to raise her hips up. It's going to allow you to get your little short king, right? That prince hit that right angle. That's step one. And this is a second 10 minutes after you've already done the foreplay. The next thing that you're going to do, let's say you need to change positions, right? You don't have to go ham for 30 seconds. Men get tired after a minute, give yourself some time. Enjoy that, right? Explore every part of her body. But once you find that it's time to transition positions, go ahead and put her on her side. And this is kind of like a modified lotus position, but not necessarily. I'm going to explain more of the lotus position because this is a position that I've used more to be more spiritually active instead of sexually active, and I'll explain that more. If you put her on her side, meaning that one of her legs is underneath both your legs, and her hip is and her top leg is over whether your left hip or hip, that's actually gonna be the same sensation for a woman based on angle as if doggy style. So if you can't reach doggy style with a woman because she's got a little bit too much junk in the trunk, go ahead and turn her on her side, be on top of one of her legs with her top leg over your other thigh, and that's going to be the same sensation. At least that way you can get that same type of spiritual emotional connection without that doggy style thing, meaning like, oh, I'm just trying to fuck a bitch or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like you're just trying to face down, ass up. If you want to do that, if you want to give some more of a connection with that, go ahead and turn her on her side, one leg down, one leg up, over the hip. You're good to go. And then the last thing that you need to do is, if you are having problems with premature ejaculation, it's okay to take a male enhancement pill. Viagra, Cialis, whatever you're going to use, right? Cialis is kind of more based on like, they call it the weekend pill, meaning that it's not going to give you a hard on, just right away. It's kind of more, it's going to give you duration. It's going to allow you to have circulation of blood to your cock for a longer extent of time, 24 to 48 hours, right? That's what call it the weekend pill. As opposed to Viagra, you're going to have it experience between 4 to 6 hours, right? And all it is just giving more blood and circulation from everything that's going on in your circulatory system to your boy downstairs. That's the only difference. It's okay to do that. You can either be honest and tell your woman that you need to do that, but again, if you bust quick, it's okay to use that, because it's not the fact that you bust quick in round 1. It's the fact that it's allowing you to sustain for round 2. And I've actually had this before. It's actually a compliment for women if you bust quick. That means that they have like Niagara Falls, WAP, that fucking Cardi B, like wet ass, what I'm talking about. They're going to take that as a compliment, but the thing is, they still need to get off. So if you want to sexually arouse and please your woman, cool yourself off, go to the restroom, splash water in your face, take a drink, take a shot, get your shit together. After you already took whatever pill that you're taking, right, Cialis or Viagra, and and this is not, I'm not sponsoring it, right? I'm not sponsored yet, so I'm giving you options. Get ready for round 2 so then you can finally give her the 15 minutes that she needs. That's all that I'm saying. It's okay to use that. But again, we have to go back to step 1, step 2, step 3. Is your fitness in order? Is your finances in order? Is your head in order? Your emotional, your mental capacity, all that shit. Have you done the foreplay? You know what I'm talking about? Like, you can't use that for the long term. I mean, some people do. Obviously, if you're in the porn industry, but I'm just saying most people aren't in the porn industry. Like, you shouldn't need to use that unless it's an actual issue. And if it's okay, it's an actual issue. But the thing is, how do we best combat that? How do we get to our most natural primate states to where we don't have to use male enhancement pills? And that's what we're talking about in this podcast, is how do we get you back to your most innate primal state where you don't need to, bust quick or whatever, right? So again, a lot of things that we needed to cover. With that being said, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, stop watching porn. The reason why you need to stop watching porn, unless you're doing porn, unless you're fucking every day, unless you're fucking married. If you're married, I've heard this time and time again. Guys, my best friends, my friends, homies, I'm not trying to call you out. That's exactly why I'm not fucking using names. I'm just saying, when someone fucking told me that we need to plan to have sex, and I'm like, bro, what the fuck is that? Planned sex? The fuck you mean? We need to fuck 2, 3. If you haven't seen American Pie, right? Jim's dad literally said the reason why we sent you to fucking Sunday and Wednesday school and Jewish school and all that shit is like we did it 2, 3 times a day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, you gotta fuck, man. If you want to keep your testosterone, you gotta keep fucking, man. Keep fucking. Like, where the fuck it is that you have to plan sex, right? Like, and I will say this. No, I know women are going to fucking try to combat me this. I know this. Men, you do have the option after you have however many kids that you want, you can have a vasectomy. Of course, women, it is harder on their body to be on a contraceptive, an IUD or NuvaRing, or on the pill and oral contraceptives, whatever. I know that. You could also use condoms. I'm just saying, guys, you do have the option to get a vasectomy so you can bust in your woman however you want, because that is probably the best feeling on earth. Fine, whatever, fuck it. But again, going back to that concept is you have to be able to explain with your partner. Do we want to have kids or do we not have kids? Do we care or do we not have care? I mean, unless a woman says, hey, I had a hysterectomy and I don't have a baby. I mean, do whatever it is the fuck you want, but just make sure you take care of your sexual health. So, again, stop watching porn. Be open with your woman. Say that if you have sexual kinks or fantasies that you want to try, be open to explore it. Try to figure out your safe words. I know I'm trying to cover a lot of generalities here in this podcast, and I'll cover more in future podcasts, but I'm just saying is, we want to make sure that if we need to boost our sex life now, what do we do? And the last thing, of course, that we can do is we could always use toys. I did talk about supplements a little bit. The last step is supplements. So let me break it down as we wrap up this episode. First thing is buy yourself time by expanding floor play, step 1. Second time is get your fitness in check. Figure out where you currently stand as a man. Are you too fat? Are you not exercising? Are you on bad medication, etc.? Third thing is exploit angles. Use pillows where you see fit. And that's going to get into our last subject, because that's going to be the long process of this episode podcast, exploiting angles. But I want to talk about the lotus position because I think that is a position that's commonly overlooked. Fourth thing is stop watching porn, start fucking. Unless you're an amateur porn star and you're fucking every day. The reason why I say this is because if you're masturbating constantly, you're constantly reducing your testosterone, right? Like you're literally, like if you're busting 4 or 5 times a day through masturbation, which is self-arousal, the body chemistry in yourself, you're lowering your testosterone. But if you are fucking, literally trying to procreate and you're taking care of yourself, all that stuff, for some apparent reason, the body chemistry is a really weird thing. You would actually boost your testosterone because the connection that you have with a woman and yourself, that boosts your testosterone. Like, it kind of makes you a king in your own realm sexually. So if you're masturbating, you need to stop. Your testosterone, if you don't bust in like 4 or 5 days through self pleasure, your testosterone is going to be at like 400%. That's the study. Same concept kind of relies to if you're doing porn every day or if you're fucking every day, same similar concept. So if you don't have a girl, get yourself a girl. If not, get yourself a slew. I don't care. But you need to be fucking every day or be celibate, man. Give yourself that fucking thing. Like, if you're not smoking or drinking or anything like that, be celibate. Give yourself the challenge. It's okay to use toys, right? Talked about 4, 5. Use toys or supplements. If you need to use Viagra, Cialis, go ahead and do that. Use toys. Use a clit stimulator, whatever the case may be. That's gonna give you time. You need to give yourself time. You need to make it more about the experience for her to give yourself like if you give yourself 5 minutes of foreplay, 10 minutes of teasing, and like 2 minutes of like actual penetration, or even 1 minute, you gave yourself time. Like, buy yourself some time, right? Don't fucking try to rush into it. And if there's that one position that... So for me, I'll say this because it's all about the G-spot, right? We talked about putting the pillow underneath her hip, raising her hips so you can hit the G-spot, or you can hit it from the side if you're over, which is similar to the doggy style position. The position that's also very good at stimulating is when they are face down with the pillow underneath their hips. And it's not doggy style in any way, shape, or form, but you're pretty much on top of a woman and you are stimulating her or penetrating her from the back, or penetrating her while her stomach's down and she's kind of laid down in a prone position. That's going to act, if you have not paid attention, you're directly stimulating her clitoris in the way she needs to be. That's exactly how she needed to be able to stimulate her G-spot. So if you do that, just know that, like, whatever position it is, just don't do that position. Wait for the position that's going to allow you to bust for the end, right? Like, allow her to explore your body as a man, as a dominant. And then when you're like, all right, I'm tired or I'm gassed, like, go ahead and do your, 30-second position, whatever the case may be. So that will allow you to explore your partner. And again, it's a mutual experience, not a parasitic experience. Know that. Unless you're a fuckboy. And of course, you could use toys. You could use the clit stimulator, the vibrator, all that stuff. Just make sure that you're open with your partner, that you're willing to do that. Don't be scared if you go to a sex shop. Don't be scared to ask questions, because it's about the experience that you're having with your partner. Now that we've wrapped up, and if you made it this far to this episode, I know I've kind of ran around through various topics. It's because I'm trying to get the generalizations out before I get into the specifics. And I could already hear in the comment section, like, bro, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, all that shit. Nah, fuck you. Like, you can go fuck yourself. Because I know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just, in a way, kind of difficult to be able to explain the specifics to the average man who has not had a BDSM relationship, right? To me, it's second nature. To the other person, they're going to be like, this is fucking taboo. What the fuck you do? So let's finally cap off this podcast with the lotus position. So what is the lotus position? So we talked about angles. We talked about foreplay. We talked about your physicality. We talked about, no fapping. We talked about toys and supplements. What is the lotus position? And I think this is something for you to be able to explore. If you've never read any kind of book or any kind of neo-noir romance like 50 Shades of Grey, if you haven't like actually seen what women desire, not to say what they want, but what they desire sexually, or if you've never been in that realm, it can be kind of difficult to the average man to be able to, like, how do I please my woman, right? Like, how do I make her not want to fucking divorce me? How do I make, the typical Sunday sex where she, is like, all right, bend over, or all right, get on your back, and you just get in, get out, get off 5 minutes. Like, oh, I've been waiting all week to bust a nut in my woman, or whatever the case of your current situation is. It's like, no, how do you change the game for her? How do you keep things exciting? The lotus position is actually a very sensual position, but it can be a very sexual exploitation. So lotus position is pretty much where, imagine if you're in the butterfly pose, or if you're in the Indian pose, if you cross your feet, or if you put the heels of your feet, if you're sitting down and you put the heels of your feet together, and you're literally what looks like the butterfly position, and a woman sits on top of your gonads, your gifted gonads, or your boy downstairs, your saluting soldier. It's actually a very spiritual position, because it is as intimate as it is stimulating. It's nowhere near comparison to the cow curl position, but you could actually do a lot where you can, in the lotus position, right? You're literally in a butterfly pose. She sits right on top of your saluting soldier. Whether you're 4 to 7 or 9 inches, you're literally going to be hitting the angle of her G-spot. But you can also explore and enjoy your woman instead of it being missionary position, because you both are literally sitting right up of each other instead of her being our back and you're being over her. It's another way to take things horizontally to the vertical position, and you could actually speak to each other the way you want to. You could actually dirty talk the way you want to. You could actually explore the woman the way you want to. You can make more of a connection the way you want to. And you don't need to be gifted the same way I am, right, downstairs. You can be average or below average and get things done. But because it's based more on the connection, you could even start by putting her feet. Imagine this. You're in a butterfly position. She's sitting right over you. Her legs are over your hips, right? To your back, right? You're in a butterfly position. If she's flexible enough, you could even put her legs, so her knees are on your shoulders, and increase the angle that way. Or you could put one leg over and one leg to the side over your hip. So you have one leg on your shoulder, one leg to your side. You're still in the butterfly position. And that's another way to hit the angle the same way that you would do it in that modified missionary position as well. But you have the strong emotional connection. So it's kind of like a modified scissor position as well, if you want to call it that. So I advise you to go ahead and do your thorough research on the lotus position. Go ahead and explore that with your partner. If you're doing the typical missionary and doggy style and it's just not working, you try the angles with putting the pillows or putting her face down, put the pillow underneath her stomach, and it's just not working, go ahead and try the lotus position. Because if you're disconnecting with your woman and you feel like you need to get a connection with your woman, go ahead and try the lotus position. I assure you, it's gonna explore more avenues for you. You can go ahead and, depending on her flexibility and your flexibility, change positions and whatnot, but that's gonna be the gateway to help you to get to your next sexual, or get over whatever your current sexual frustration is, to the next level. So that is it for today's episode. I know I went pretty much from defending Andrew Tate to defending myself that I'm not a misogynist, a racist, a sexist, a bigot, or whatever else, all the fucking names that they called me, to actually get into what I wanted to talk to, which is Mr. Gray's Talk Room. I want to talk about sex. I want to help you guys explore your sexual life, man or woman. I'm a sexist for both categories. I want to help you sexually satisfy your man, because I know what a man wants, or help you sexually satisfy a woman because I know exactly what a woman wants. So if this podcast ever gets canceled or anything like that, make sure you catch me on Rumble. Whether the case may be, I'm going to be in Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Prime, Spotify. You know where to check me out. I'm going to be on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, Facebook. You can catch me. Other than that, guys, stay tuned and take care. Well, let's go ahead and listen to this, right? I'm never confused. Hey, I'm so used to being used. I love unexpected, 'cause I hate when I'm always expecting.